Hi, I'm Toria Brooke, and you're watching Toriavision. I'm here with probably my most anticipated guest yet. This has been in the works for a few months, and I'm super excited. I was going to say my own pitch, but I think her bio speaks for itself. So, welcome to the show, Christina Bobb. Christina is an attorney in Washington, D.C., with an emphasis in national security law. She worked as an investigative reporter, former television show host, and correspondent with One America News Network, where she reported almost exclusively on election integrity. Christina began her legal career in the United States Marine Corps, serving as a defense counsel representing Marines and sailors in court-martial and administrative separation hearings. She served in multiple overseas tours, including Helmand Province, Afghanistan, and Stuttgart, Germany. After her military service, Bobb transitioned to private practice at Higgs, Fletcher & Mack in San Diego, and then to Washington, D.C., where she held executive-level positions within the Department of Homeland Security. After the 2020 election, she joined President Donald J. Trump's legal team to focus on election integrity for the 2024 election. During that election cycle, she joined the Republican National Committee's election integrity section as senior counsel to ensure a Trump victory. Prior to the 2024 election, Christina authored Stealing Your Vote, the inside story of the 2020 election and what it means for 2024. As we know, this was a really big deal. She now works as an attorney for Judicial Watch, which we love, where she practices focus on exposing government corruption. So I think that greatly details how this is going to go. But Christina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, so what are you working on now?
Oh, I mean, we've got a lot of, I love being at Judicial Watch, by the way. Obviously, we focus on transparency. We have a heavy FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, request practice. And having been through the Trump team and experiencing everything I went through, I had 9 cases. I'm currently a criminal defendant right now from the state of Arizona from the 2020 election. And I was investigated, subpoenaed, all of that. I had 9 cases during the Biden administration. Only one of those remains, for the Arizona case. But having been through all of that lawfare, I was sued by Dominion for $1.6 billion
Wow.
with a B, $1 billion. They ended up dismissing it. We can get into that if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Went through all of that. I have now focused largely on trying to unravel the lawfare and figure out what is going on? How are they able to do this? How are they able to cripple so many people with, burdensome litigation? We see it happen with the Trump administration all the time where, they just burden them with civil suits, taking them to court. If they don't like a policy, they take a case to court in Washington, D.C. and get a D.C. judge to say, oh, your policy is illegal for whatever reason. So I've been doing a lot of requests at the state level to the Department of Justice about the use of outside assistance, because I don't believe it's only coming from within the Department of Justice. I think there's outside players that are impacting the decisions made. So that's the main investigation I'm working on right now.
Wow. It's interesting that you bring up Arizona pertaining to your case, because I actually had a friend who was the head of one of the heads of the Maricopa County audit. Mm-hmm. So just kind of investigating the forensic ballots. I know UOCAVA was a big issue there, just tons and tons of overseas ballots. So if you guys don't know what that is, if you're a U.S. citizen living abroad or a member of the military, that's how you send in your ballot.
Right.
So these ballots were just stacked perfectly. Like you could tell they were computer generated, like the bubbles.
Yeah.
So what can you talk about regarding, Maricopa or even Arizona in general?
Yeah, well, the UOCAVA ballots in general are a complete scam, and they're often used, especially when the margins are so small in the difference in races. A lot of times, UOCAVA is like the original mail-in ballot, right? And mail-in ballots are historically corrupt. I mean, it is the modern day ballot stuffing with mail-in ballots. I have voted overseas. I've been in the military. I was serving in Germany during the 2016 election, actually. And so I mailed in my ballot, and it literally was just an email. I was registered at the time in San Diego, and so I mailed my ballot in via email. And I was like, how is this even going to get cast? And they were like, don't worry, we'll make sure somebody casts it for you. And so this whole idea that they were like, oh, we have to protect the secret ballot, and it's sacrosanct. It's complete BS. They don't do it. And then you have these stacks, as you were talking about, of UOCAVA ballots or mail-in ballots that end up changing or heavily impacting the outcome of the election. Sorry, that's not exactly the question you asked, but Maricopa County, I mean, it's an absolute mess. Their elections have been a mess for a while. I'm grateful that the FBI recently took some of the information from 2024 as well as 2020. And I'm curious to see what comes of that, because there's a lot to find there. I mean, I was on the ground every single day at the Arizona audit reporting on it. I spoke to the CEO of the company that was doing the audit. I spoke to volunteers. I mean, anybody and everybody that I could talk to. I did detailed investigations and interviews with them. And there were a lot of problems with the election. And somehow they managed to just cover all of that up. And everyone went, oh, okay. And they just moved on. And it's like, wait a second. No, it's a major problem. So I hope that the FBI actually comes out and details what happened. I say what happened. It's kind of like peeing in the swimming pool. You can't undo it. And so I don't know that I'm not hopeful necessarily that we're going to get actual numbers or anything, but just that the FBI would actually acknowledge the illegal activity that took place.
So I think recently that the FBI subpoenaed not only the 2020 election information out of Fulton County, Georgia, but also the 2024, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think is the next step in that process? I mean,
well, our leaders need to honestly make the change. And I think election integrity to me is probably one of those political issues that highlights the facts that both parties are the problem. Because the way I like to summarize it is Democrats cheat, but Republicans cover it up. And that's what they're doing. And I mean, the UACAVA issue. So in originally the SAVE Act, now the Save America Act, they had changed UACAVA. So if you're overseas, you basically mail in your ballot from overseas. It's a UACAVA ballot. They were in that original bill. A lot of people who register from overseas register in states that they've never lived. They've never lived there. They don't currently live there. They live somewhere else in a different country, and they're heavily registered in conservative states to impact the outcome of those states. So part of what that bill had wanted to do was to say, okay, if you're a UACAVA voter, that's fine, but you can only vote in federal races and you can vote in D.C. Like if you want to affect the election, you can vote in the D.C. elections and then you can vote for federal races, but you can't vote in state races where you're not living. You're not a resident there. You're not living there. And Republicans are refusing to pass it. So we need to be really honest and say this is not a Democrat problem. This is a Republican problem, because if Republicans wanted to fix it, they could.
If they wanted to, they could. It's like that's the theme of the last several years, I feel like. I just want to say, I was watching your coverage in Arizona. I was anonymous at the time, so I was anonymous for a very long time. I've been suspended several times from Instagram, 3 times from Twitter, and it's like surreal for me to have you here, because you're just someone that I look up to, and I feel like in the political space in general, there's a lot of like not sincere people, and I feel like you're actually someone that women can look up to. So it's really exciting for me, and I have invited many women on the show. Geographical issues present itself a problem for travel, but yes, super happy to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. My family's in Nashville. When you were like, "Hey, it's a long shot. Are you ever in Nashville?" It's like, actually, I am. So I'm happy to be here.
It's like a God thing. Yeah. So I guess you don't have to get into all this if you don't want to, but we are coming off the heels of literally this Saturday, the assassination attempt incident at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. Do you have any just comments on what you think happened, or like why? I mean,
well, I think there are a handful of things, maybe half a dozen issues, major issues that are not being addressed by either party. Again, one of them is, I think, the mental health crisis particularly on the left is very real. And this whole transgender, and I'm not saying, I don't think the shooter was transgender, but I think that all of that kind of, you can make up your own mind, and, there is no right and wrong, and, nothing either, 2 + 2 can equal 5. That type of thinking literally drives people crazy. And so I think the left is feeding a mental health epidemic, which then leads to these mass shootings that we're seeing. Thank God, I'm not aware of any significant injuries, so thankfully that's okay. This is the 3rd time that someone has tried to take President Trump's life publicly that we're aware of anyway. Why aren't we doing better? I think the security failure is so blatant at this point. It makes you go, what's going on with the Secret Service?
So I know the last 70 or so days, we actually haven't had funding for Secret Service. So it's part of the whole DHS shutdown.
And then they tried to take away, you know, I think it was last year or whatever when they were trying to take, or I'm sorry, it was before the election when they were trying to take away his Secret Service detail because they want to kill him.
It's just, what's wild is how the left tries to say that like he's Hitler or however they want to describe him, but this same scenario is not happening to them. Like I don't think we ever really heard about anything when Biden was in office about possible attacks.
Well, one of the things that I think is fantastic about President Trump, love him or hate him, love his policies or not, he has made the hypocrisy so glaring. And before, you know, when you had Barack Obama in there or George Bush or to some extent even Joe Biden, although I think Trump had already broken the mold at that point.
Yeah.
It was just, even though something might look off, but the media was all in sync with what they were saying. And so we were like, okay, you know, I guess I don't know what else could be the issue. So I guess we'll just go along with it. But Donald Trump basically came in, you know, Bigfoot's into the political arena, and just his presence, whether he intends to or not, I think it highlights what our politicians, what our career politicians are doing wrong. Even though we can't see everything and, you know, we don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes, it's very, very, very clear, especially on the Republican side, they're not doing what their constituents want because Donald Trump gets up there and says, you know, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and he actually does X, Y, Z. You know, I know there's some debates about this in his second term, but largely, you know, on average, much more than any other politician, he actually does what he says. And so now anybody who's not doing that, you have that contrast to compare to. And so I think we can just see that Republican, and for me, because I'm conservative and I'm usually, you know, almost always on the Republican side, especially these days, always on the Republican side, it's easier to look at the Republican side and go, wait a minute, they're not actually fighting for me, or this one, you know, pick out individual Republicans and say they're not actually doing what we need done and what conservatives want done. And I think it's a heck of a lot easier to see it now.
So I actually believe that the last several years have happened because people like Trump want the people to get more involved. Like if the people are pissed off, they're going to call things out. He can't be the only one calling things out, right? And this is why at the local level politics are so important, because now the parents are getting involved in the school boards and whatnot, and they're seeing the issues where I think before people were generally asleep to the issues that were happening. Now they know if my kid's getting affected and I have to take them out of school to put them in like homeschooling or what is it called where they have all the kids in the one spot?
Like charter school?
Yeah. Like, you know, if that's the level we're at, there has to be more involvement.
Right. That is the solution, right? And you have to have people step up in much greater numbers than we've seen before, because the other thing that President Trump's administrations have proven is he can't do it alone, to your point. And I know, you know, you see a lot of complaints of why hasn't Trump done this? Why hasn't Trump, you know, cleaned up our elections? Why hasn't he cleaned up the border? And he has, you know, obviously cleaned up the border in a lot of ways. Because he can't do it alone, and it takes the Republicans in Congress to actually pass the laws that the president's trying to create, and they're not doing it. And so that's up to us to replace them as voters, and that's hard to do. It's very hard to get incumbents out.
So as far as I know, you kind of mentioned how you're seeing we're all seeing a polarization on the right, and I am kind of actively trying to mend this. My last guest, he's a little controversial, but I think that people were surprised that I got him on. It's like we've been friends for a couple of years, and do you think that there's people right now, while they might have some points of truth, do you think there's some people that are trying to cause division that are on the right? I mean, what's your perspective?
Yeah, like the Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly type, the Candace Owens, and all these factions. Yeah. There might be. I don't think so. I think that they're all being who they actually are, and maybe money plays a role in that. You know, people saying, "Oh, they're getting paid off" or whatever, and I haven't seen the receipts of that, so I don't know. And this might be an unpopular take, I don't mind it. I don't mind the division. I mean, that's kind of how MAGA rose up, is we're getting censored and we're not able to speak. And now suddenly everyone's like, but wait, we have to be 100% completely unified on our views of everything. And it's like, wait a minute, when was that how the right acted? So, I think if someone, Candace Owens is the one that everyone's like, oh, she's out there trying to grift to make money. And she may be. I don't know. I'm not here. I'm certainly not here to defend Candace Owens. That's not my whatever. But so what if she is? You know what I mean? People watch TV shows. People watch movies. You can believe what you want about her or Tucker Carlson. So personally, take what you want. Don't listen to what you don't want. I don't. It doesn't bother me at all.
I mean, some of it is kind of a lesson in just thinking critically. So I think
sure.
we're supposed to see certain viewpoints to kind of discern what is the truth.
100%. And I'm not going to lie. There are people on that list I just named that caused me to change my mind about things. That I go, oh, wait a second. I hadn't even thought of that. So,
yeah, I think it's a combination of just knowing what's psychological warfare and what is the truth. So I don't know if everybody has that discernment. I think that's kind of where the issue comes. But I try to be a voice of reason where I can.
It's important.
There's times where, I mean, someone even like Nick Fuentes, I know that a lot of people might not necessarily like him, but there's things that he says at times that I'm like, okay, like, it's reasonable, or there's not every single thing I'm going to agree with, but I can understand why people sometimes gravitate in certain directions. So
yeah, and I think it's great, honestly. Like I'm not a Nick Fuentes fan.
No.
I mean, his view on women is a little
I
know what you're saying, and I certainly get the reels, and sometimes it's like, oh, that was a good, little soundbite or a little clip.
I do think there's also people, not going to name names, but just in general, that are used by both sides where needed sometimes to get messages across. I think there's times where certain people in positions of power cannot get messages out themselves.
100%. And there's certainly a place to push the messaging out.
Yeah.
And I don't think any one person, there's not a single person, we could go through the list of big influencers or TV show hosts or whatever. I don't believe there's one person who is 100% correct. I think you have to kind of take a kaleidoscope view of it and take what you think is good and throw out what you think is not good. And that's the closest thing we're going to get to the truth.
Well, one of the things I like to reference, the movie Wag the Dog, and it's about how the government, this was made in the 90s, creates news sometimes to distract from other things. So many people believe like the Monica Lewinsky scandal with Bill Clinton was distracting from some of the U.S. trade deals with China at the time that they didn't really want people to be looking at. So it's not to say that the Monica Lewinsky situation didn't happen, but it may have been augmented
they used
more.
It for another purpose.
Yeah, so I do think there's times where that can be used for good or bad. And, some people like to call this Patriot Insider or 17. There's a drop there where it talks about how disinformation is necessary. And I think that's super valid. There's even times where I see the mainstream media is actually helping us by lying about certain things so that not everybody's privy to what's going on. Because I think for matters of national security, the people can't know every single move that's being made. I mean, there's times where we kind of got to be in the dark because it's protecting the people who may be doing good.
I think there's an element of that. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
I think it has been abused to a point where our government lies to us all the time about everything. And so now nobody believes anything, right? You can have the president come out and say, on his birthday and say, today is my birthday. And people were like, it's not his birthday. When was he actually born? And then you'll have like all of these conspiracy theories about what it means because everybody knows we're being lied to so much. Yes, that's why we have classifications, right? Why, the public can't know everything. And that does serve a purpose. But, I was the attorney on site during the Mar-a-Lago raid. I was one of two attorneys negotiating with the Department of Justice and the FBI about the Mar-a-Lago case and what they were classifying and all that. And I just saw firsthand how it was so abused beyond its purpose. FISA is a great example of that, right? The Republicans are trying to re-up FISA. The Republicans are the ones, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, I believe. They're the ones that are trying to further this. And then it's so stupid. And it's not all due to FISA, but FISA is, surveillance. Then they're the ones that get surveilled. You've got Republican members of Congress that are having their phones tapped and, the tolls sent out from Verizon and their carriers. And they're like, oh, this is so bad. They're surveilling us. You're the one giving them authority to do it. Stop. And I know the president recently came out and is for FISA. I'm very much against it. He has been against it historically. Mike Johnson was against it historically, and then they flip-flopped recently. But I think the whole... coming from the national security world, I was a Marine Corps judge advocate, and most recently the Mar-a-Lago case kind of highlighted it to me. I think a lot of times the political elite use this is a matter of national security it's an excuse, but what it really means is this is something that threatens our power structure, so we're going to hide it so nobody can see what's going on.
Yeah. And I agree with that aspect of what you're saying, for sure. I know some people are upset right now because, as far as I'm aware, I think it was like 8 million pieces of documents have been given to Congress unredacted regarding the Jeffrey Epstein files, documents, however you want to coin it. What do you think should be kind of done going forward with that situation?
That is a very interesting situation, especially because, the whole campaign, people were saying, release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. I do share the president's concern on a much smaller level than he does, but I think his concern is valid that good people could get roped and stuff. There's a reason grand jury transcripts are kept private, and there's a reason some things are private. An attorney representing Jeffrey Epstein isn't necessarily guilty, but maybe by association they will be. So I'm not just one that's like, release everything, but I think they need to release a lot more than has been released, or at least that's what I would like to see. And I think rather than I don't think anybody is concerned about the actual files themselves. I think what people want is they want to know there's not two tiers of justice, that there's not one code of conduct for the political elite and for the donor class and for the ultra wealthy that can literally rape children and have no consequences. And then the rest of us, get stuck with parking tickets and can't rebuild homes when homes are burned down in fires. And, we're stuck trying to navigate this system that they created, which is broken. And so I am less concerned about the actual files themselves, although I would like more released, and more concerned with people need to see that the ultra elite are going to be held accountable to the same standard that we are. And I don't think we're seeing that right now.
Well, speaking of fires and houses, thank God for Spencer Pratt. And
Is he not so fun? Oh my gosh, if you had told me that I would love Spencer Pratt, I would not believe you.
I messaged him the other day. I was like, when I was in middle school, I was watching you and your wife on MTV. I never thought this would happen.
I'm sure he gets that 100 times a day.
Yeah, I just said, thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, we're behind you. And I know recently Karen Bass tried to pull a media stunt by meeting with Trump.
House. Yeah.
I think the people who know can see through it, but Pratt was just on Joe Rogan, and I would love to have him on my show. I don't know if he would come out here, but if it was in the budget, I would head out there, because I just think he's doing the Lord's work. But
I hope he can win. I mean, winning that race, they passed universal mail-in ballots. They're counting ballots past Election Day, which actually Judicial Watch has a case at the Supreme Court right now. We've argued it. We're waiting for the ruling. We hope it comes out in June, by the end of this term. That would limit this is for federal elections, so Spencer Pratt's election wouldn't necessarily apply to this, but the ballots have to be counted on Election Day. Like, you can't go 6, 7, 12, 15 days past Election Day to change the outcome of the election. So that's one case from Judicial Watch that I'm really proud of and excited about from my colleagues. It's not my case. I can't take that much credit. But anyway, that's what Spencer's up against, right? Is they'll drag Election Day out for a week, a month, however long they want in order to change the outcome. So he's got to have a really, really solid ground game, which I assume he's putting together.
It's crazy that the idea of counting ballots the day of is such a foreign concept now.
And not counting them after, right? Like, Election Day ends on Election Day. It's not day plus 14, which is what California's doing. I know it was the 2020 election that ruined the way we do. Granted, we had trouble with our elections before that, and not pretending that was the beginning, but it certainly made it acceptable or somehow palatable for people to be like, oh yeah, no, we don't know the results on Election Day, or we have to have universal mail-in ballots, or why would anybody think that illegal aliens are getting, the right to vote, or, all of the stuff that pre-2020, which was just 6 years ago, would have been outrageous and crazy. Suddenly now you're racist and a homophobe or a bigot or whatever. I don't even know what they're calling us these days. But that's the new normal now. I mean, 2020 really really did significant damage to our elections.
Well, then, do you remember in New York, I think that the illegals were getting like those prepaid credit cards for like $10,000 a pop. And it's like these people are literally staying in luxury hotels. And Mom Donnie, I don't even want to know. I am not as familiar with what's going on in New York right now. I'm from New Jersey, as I should know. Actually, a guest I just recorded with, will be released after yours. He is really dealing with the stuff there. But what do you think as far as, ICE and the current deportations? Like, do you think we need to ramp it up more? I mean,
yes, I think I think ICE needs to be allowed to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we, as collectively as a nation, don't like the job that ICE is doing, change the law. Don't ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it really is true that, most Americans want to just open the borders and let everybody come in, which I don't think, according to most of the polls, that's not true.
Yeah.
But if that's true, then change the law.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason they're not doing that is because anybody who puts that bill forward, any member of the House who's like, I've got a open border bill, is going to get voted out of office because that's not actually what the people want. And so they can't change the law. And so they're ignoring it and calling you racist if you want to enforce the law. So I think ICE should do the job that they are mandated to do by federal law, by House and Senate appropriations that have appropriated not obviously that's delayed, but I mean that's the delay tactic. Rather than actually change the law and risk that being used against them in an election, they're just ignoring it and then not funding it, which is obviously which is the current crisis that we're in. But
yeah, so I kind of think that right now X, with Elon at the head and a couple other different elements, are right now pushing for citizen journalism. Now, some people don't believe Nick Shirley actually found all that fraud. I'm kind of one of them that I believe he was propped up. But for the good, he's 18-year-old, seems pretty like clean as a whistle.
Yeah.
But when that whole exposure on Minnesota happened, I believe they found a Signal chat Signal or Discord where it was like the mayor, the governor.
Oh, no kidding. I
Different,
didn't know that.
different people were involved in like encouraging this activity.
It's so rampant across the country. And you never see it, one, get better, and you never see anybody other than the minions prosecuted.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be the officials because they're the ones that are benefiting from it.
To that point, I'm sure you saw me post about this multiple times because I'm personally excited about this. The DOJ just kind of reinstated death by firing squads as a form of execution.
I saw that. I wasn't sure if it was real, and I didn't look it up. It's real?
Yeah, it's real. It's absolutely real. So
that is such a Trump thing to do.
As of Friday. And so, I think I just want to encourage people. I know everyone's impatient. The last 4 years before this second administration were really rough, and it's going to take some time to figure that out. When I was writing for Nukes, I mean, part of the reason I left was because in like 8 months, I didn't feel like we were doing enough work, which I'm from the Northeast. I want to like be productive, right? So the government moves slow. That's just how it is. And sometimes people who haven't worked in certain positions don't get that. We are actually moving way faster under Trump than most administrations.
Right, which is why they're suing him so much, because they're trying to throw sand in the gears and stop him from actually completing his agenda. And so that's why he's got to go through court. Every single thing he wants to do has to go through court. None of our prior presidents had that issue. They were all able to just govern the way they wanted to govern. And this president has to go through court, usually in D.C. or usually in front of a liberal judge, and argue why he's allowed to do what he's doing. And so they're slowing him down a lot through that. But yeah, to your point, I mean, if he didn't have all of this litigation, he'd be just like cranking.
So according to my understanding, some people believe that, I don't necessarily believe this, but some people believe that maybe shifts in policy or potential shifts in policy under Trump happened because he was so drained, financially through what was happening with the lawfare prior to this second administration. Like, could you see that being plausible? I mean, you saw how crazy it was in New York, especially.
Wait, what do you mean? What
like as far as campaign funding, they think it was different this time around because he's a self-made man. I mean, he probably self-funded more in the first term.
Meaning, like he owes political favors to people.
Well, I don't even know if it's necessarily that. It could be, but I think some people were like, well, he was drained financially from the lawfare that he went going into this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. I mean, that's very much true. Whether it was his personal resources or, there were a lot of donors that stepped up to help. I mean, the donors are amazing. I had a donor step up to help for my criminal case, which I'm incredibly grateful for. But it was a different game. How that affects him, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think, and this is just Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I don't think, he's notorious for not paying his lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think that he would be beholden to donors that way, to be like, oh, I have to do this because of XYZ. Now, whether you want to say, oh, there's, personal interests and whatever, okay. I don't know. And I certainly think people should look into. I'm a big fan of holding people accountable. I'm not aware of any kind of insider dealings with the Trumps, but certainly, I mean.
And I'm not raising it to you as like a gotcha question.
Yeah.
I'm raising it to you because I'm bringing it to attention to the people that may already think like that, or the people who don't, that this is something that is being said. And I agree with you. Like, I don't think that's what happened.
Yeah.
But that is definitely something that people are saying, which I think is part of the division incitement on the right, is the way, the allegations on how he was funded heading into this term.
I see. I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's an issue. I'm all for checking on it.
Yeah.
And like, certainly if there's smoke, check it out. Just knowing him and his personality. And I'm not defending him. He does not need me to defend him, but, he would just take the money and then not pay you back. You know what I mean? Like, that's just what he would do. So, I just think he's in office. What are they going to do?
No, exactly.
You know what I mean?
It just frustrates me sometimes when I hear certain things and I'm like, guys, like, I'm not saying I want to run for office, but I think some people should get a little bit more involved before they finger point in certain ways, because I don't think they understand process, if that makes sense.
I think that is very true. People who, it's true for me too. I just got into all of this in 2020 and I didn't know either. So yes, there is that learning curve of, oh, that's how politics works. Then you have Donald Trump, which is totally different. He sets his own thing. But I do think that concern is valid even for other Republicans. I think it's very valid for other politicians on both sides of the aisle. Donald Trump is just this unique thing where I just don't think he, in his mind, can be bought. People may think they're buying him. I just don't think he's going to.
I personally, and I'm sure you're with me on this, like, I'm not in favor of any of these like conglomerates that are censoring, like the SPLC, AIPAC, things like that. I think that we should be encouraging, obviously, free thought. Now, there's a difference between free thought and someone like, inciting violence against you. But I think it's very interesting that they're finding through the SPLC how many people were funded. I mean, they were funding the KKK.
They were funding the opposition and the counter opposition. I mean, they were funding everything. It was all fake. All of those, the Charlottesville rally. Joe Biden came out and said he decided to run for president based on the Charlottesville event of 2017, I think it was, or whatever it was. And the whole thing was fake. It was all staged. And I mean, I don't know. I think we have a significant problem with the way politics is funding. I 100% believe political funding is a problem. I don't like foreign influence in our politics, which there appears to be a lot of it. So I've focused largely on domestic issues and haven't necessarily, that's not my area, but certainly political funding is something that I think we could do better at and figure it out. I just I don't know.
Well, but as far as like the Mar-a-Lago raid, what can you kind of talk about regarding your experience in that?
Yeah, I mean, it was all fake. Everything about it was fake. They never had probable cause, and I'm so glad my book came out before Chuck Grassley released the information, because I say, and I had been saying for years, they never had probable cause to raid Mar-a-Lago. Everybody was incredibly cordial and cooperative, and whatever they asked for, we complied and helped them, and everything was as professional and responsive as it possibly could have been. And then when Joe Biden comes out with having classified documents, then the story became, oh, well, Joe Biden was cooperative and the Trump team was not cooperative. Nope, that's not the case. That is not true. And I've got, in the book, I've got text messages and emails, and you can see the whole thing, the whole discussion with us in the Department of Justice. So like what, speaking of text, what was your, like, I don't know,
most damning thing that you found, or like what is something that you can think of that
It's kind of the stuff that everybody kind of assumed, like the fake picture of the classified cover sheets on the floor that they're like, oh look, we found all these, like Donald Trump just leaves classified information on the floor.
No.
Like, no, he doesn't. They staged that. I saw them carry those cover sheets in, which they were doing not in accordance with regulations with how you carry classified cover sheets. They had them in clear Rubbermaid bins, which is a no-no. But anyway, that's what they were doing because they needed so many of them, right?
Yeah, I remember seeing those pictures of the boxes.
Yeah. And they carried them in, threw them all over the floor, took pictures, boxed them up, and carried them out. It was literally, the whole thing was fake. So that's just kind of the first thing that comes to my mind because everybody's familiar with that. Oh gosh, what else is there? CNN, this is something I hear even today that people are like, well, how did CNN get tipped off? And why was CNN there? They weren't. They were not there for the raid. They weren't there beforehand. Nobody knew until, I want to say like 7 p.m. at night. And the raid started at like 9 in the morning. So people found out at night, and I think that's when they thought the raid was starting, but it was actually over at that point. So there's a couple little things that I hear. I'm like, no, that's not right.
Well, I'm glad that you like bring that up because when I was reporting from the Russiagate trials in DC, by the way, nobody was paying me. I just wanted to go say the truth. And I was basically like a live transcript. I wasn't really inserting my opinions there. But I got to meet like multiple members of the press. And I know that we like to demonize, the left and all these different networks. There are good people within these networks. Not everyone is the same way. And I think that's important to remember. In addition to that, just how you said that was fake, I think people need to use a little bit of discernment also when they're watching the news and when they're reading stories, because there are definitely planted stories. And I mean, there's things that are completely fabricated. I mean, we saw during COVID. Remember when people were wearing like the hazmat suits? I mean, I don't know. Like,
or the scuba tanks. They go to the grocery store with scuba. And
I mean, listen, like someone can be like a germaphobe, but like having that like plastic sheet over you and like you're like hugging someone with like these like dish gloves, I was like, this is out of control.
Other thing, sorry, I just thought of one more thing. The other thing that I mentioned in here that I think people would go, oh yeah, you can always kind of tell like something's off and you're like, wait a minute, that's not right. I don't think they ever intended for the raid to become public.
Okay.
So President Trump was the one that put that information out, and they were caught so flat-footed. If you remember, it took them 3 days to respond to the fact that President Trump was like, hey, they're raiding Mar-a-Lago. And it was Merrick Garland 3 days after the raid. He did a 2 to 4 minute press conference, took no questions. Everything was scripted. And he basically is like, we're good people. We want justice. We stand by our decisions. See you in court. That was basically his press conference. And you can tell, and the way, because obviously I watched it all live. If you go back and YouTube, Merrick Garland press conference, Mar-a-Lago raid 2022 or something like that, you can tell that he was not prepared to have the raid go public, which is quite honestly shocking and scary because they thought they could raid the former president's home and nobody would find out. And all of my interactions with them during the process, and I give you all the details here, they did not believe anybody would ever know that they raided Mar-a-Lago. That's the way I view the engagement with them that I had. And I give you the facts. You can judge for yourself. But
no, everybody seriously go check out Defiant. I actually wanted to read it before you got here, and I'm like, I don't know if I have the time. But
now you're flying to DC.
Exactly. Now I bring it on the plane with me. Perfect time to read it. I'm just gonna take a short break to read from the sponsor. So, got a fellow Irishman. So fatigue, injuries, and lost productivity, whether you're on the factory floor or in the gym, your floor is working against you, but it doesn't have to. O'Mara Sprung Floors is a family-owned company with over 30 years of experience building high-performance sprung flooring right here in Flint, Michigan. Each floor is made to order using American-grown wood and a specialized foam support system that absorbs impact and reduces stress on your body. So whether you're a dancer, an athlete, or on your feet all day, you can move better longer. O'Mara Sprung Floors, built for dancers, perfected for everyone. Request an estimate at sprungfloors.com or follow them on Instagram at O'Mara Floors. So thank you so much for the sponsor. And I know for sure my feet hurt on certain floors. Maybe I'm just getting older, but my mom's also a nurse, so I appreciate that sponsor. But I guess we kind of touched with the Mar-a-Lago raid, but the other thing I want to talk about is, some people get frustrated because President Trump is someone that kind of flies off the cuff. He's not like scripted, right? He's not always
Right.
like reading from a prompt. And I think that's awesome because as a society, we were so used to like these politicians that might have sound flowery, like sound super well versed, but then they're really corrupt, right? And
Sure.
so, and I think he's exposing things. So the way that you mentioned that he wanted people to see the raid, I think it's his way, just like he had Fauci up front. You know,
Yeah.
he wants people to see things, and that's just the way he works. Like, and not everyone understands that. So sometimes they get frustrated. I'm like, don't you see that he's getting you again to think critically?
Yeah,
Like,
no,
it's-
I 100% agree. I think he is incredibly transparent. I mean, when were cabinet meetings open to the press before? I think I also think he is really proud of himself and proud of the work that he's doing. And I don't mean that I certainly don't mean that condescending, but it's kind of funny to say that about the president. But I think he genuinely is proud of the work that he's doing and he wants everybody to see it. So, yeah, he is so transparent, and I think he recognizes how corrupt politics in America have become and is trying to expose it. And I think that's why he got in. That's why he named his PAC Save America and all this. I think he's trying to save America from what this crazy elite group of people is doing.
Well, and I think it's opening the door for people that you wouldn't have necessarily thought would be running for office. So, I mean,
Right.
Mark Teixeira in Texas is running.
Okay.
I mean, like, I think that's cool. I'm not a Yankee fan. Personally, my family's more Mets and Dodgers, but I just appreciate the fact that he was a really good player, and, like, I support that. That'd be cool to work for a campaign like that. So I just hope more people get involved that are not necessarily the white collar people,
Career
because I think
politicians, yeah.
everyone's excited for the blue collar, like the everyday American. So that's the era that I think Trump pushed us into.
I agree. I think getting involved is incredibly important. I think we're seeing a more diverse type. I mean, even the Lauren Boeberts and Marjorie Taylor Greenes. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene came in 2018 or maybe 2020. I don't remember exactly when she started, but it was kind of like a new breed of gunslinger type congressman or whatever. So it certainly changed the landscape. I also think there's so much injustice happening, so much, whether it was the whole January 6th debacle and then them throwing thousands of Americans in prison for political points. Some of those folks, whether they were January 6ers or they were silenced small business owners, people that have been the victims of injustice due to their political positions, are now running for office and winning. Not all of them have won, but some of them have won. And I think that's another, if we can't get justice, we can at least make them not want to come after us again, because those people are winning, right? And so they don't want the single mom who works 2 jobs, who doesn't want to have anything to do with politics, who's so fed up with everybody going, okay, well, now I have to run for mayor too, or whatever it is. They don't want those people getting involved because they will actually make change. And so the fact that those people are now not just voting, not just helping run campaigns, but are actually running for office and winning, that helps sway the momentum as well.
So something I want to mention based on like affecting change, I believe that, again, this is my own perspective, some of the spats you see between President Trump and other people, I don't always think that they are real. Doesn't mean that there's not some validity to the context of what they're arguing about, but I do think that certain things, like I said, need to be done by people that are outside the administration. I think, for example, when Elon and Trump allegedly were like bickering, I kind of laughed at the time. And again, this is my personal opinion, but I think that people that are outsiders need to be able to have a voice that's separate, because then let's just say we need the left for something. They might associate an idea with Trump that maybe they're not going to be as aligned because he's saying it. But if somebody else who has nothing to do with it comes out and they say, hey, this is something we should think about, they might be more inclined. Now, I bring this to what just happened this weekend. People are going to have different theories on why this happened at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. Now, the press was all there. So now, regardless of what you think of why it happened, they all now know what it's like to have the fear or possibility of a bullet whizzing past their head. They might have a little bit more sympathy for what President Trump went through with Butler. And if there are new legislations that need to pass regarding safety, or maybe even military use in certain aspects that we need to have in place to get the job done, I think there'll be a little bit more understanding for purpose of safety and security. I mean, that's just my personal
I hope so.
perspective.
It's also common sense. And I hope that their experience leads to common sense.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't always happen that way. But I hope so. I hope you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So we'll see what happens. Because, I mean, the times that I've been in D.C. lately, you know, with the National Guard being present, I mean, the streets are cleaner. Like, I overall felt safe. I mean.
Yeah. I like having the National Guard there. I live in D.C. and I live right in the middle of everything. And I always enjoy the National Guard. And they do. This is terrible. I know this isn't the purpose of them being there, but they do a lot besides just patrolling and keeping people safe. Like when the snowstorm came in, there were several people whose cars were snowed in, and they actually, I watched them dig them out, and you know, they were kind of just helping the neighborhood when people needed help. And I like the National Guard.
Yeah, and I'm 100% with you, and I love men in uniform, so you know.
There's lots.
I know, but it's like. For me, I just hope that the things that we see collectively just encourage like goodwill. And one of my favorite things, the good that came out of this weekend, was some of the photographs of just like the men protecting the women.
Yeah, that was.
And
sweet.
It's just moments of instinct where you don't think, you just do. And there's just so many people like, you know, protecting other people, putting their jackets over like their wives' shoulders, and it was sweet to see. And in the midst of chaos that happens, but how did your military legal experience affect, you know, the rest of your career? I mean,
well, I served in Afghanistan. I did do one overseas tour to Afghanistan. You know, sensitive to deployments. Saw a lot of. I wasn't obviously outside the wire very often. I think only once on transport, but seeing guys and men and women coming in and out of base. You know, gosh, I don't even know how to, that takes me back, but, I hate war. You know, I didn't like it before I was over there. I hate it now. I hate seeing the industry of it. 'Cause I spent most of my time on base in Helmand Province, and, it's corporate. I mean, it's a different type of corporation, obviously, but it's corporate. You've got, whether it's the chow hall or, you know, just the different facilities, the bathroom facilities, it's all corporate. You see millions and millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer money to fund this. And like, don't get me wrong, I want bathrooms for people out there, and I want the chow hall, and I want, you know, the extra French toast dips or whatever, like the ice cream stuff, the freezer, all of those things make deployment better. But it just, I had never questioned what we were doing with our military prior to going to Afghanistan. And then I went and I was like, this looks like a lot of money being spent on this, you know?
So I know a lot of people, rightfully so, are upset about the fact that like members of Congress and the Senate are, you know, making trades before wars. So even before like the Russia-Ukraine war, there's a lot of people investing in the stock market. And more recently, I believe a member of the U.S. Navy was, well, he's under fire right now because he made that bet. Yeah. So
he bet on his own mission, which, you shouldn't do it. But before you throw him in prison, throw every member of Congress in prison. You know, so I don't get me wrong. I definitely don't want our service members betting on this, but they're betting on their own lives. You know, they're the ones going out there. They're putting their lives out there. I think it needs to be shut down, but not prior to them shutting down members of Congress doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think there was a bill that went out that was called like the Pelosi bill or something like that. It was about
insider trading members of Congress. Yes. And it's like, and you want to throw this guy in like, to me, that is just next level unconscionable. Like, you want to destroy this guy's life and throw him in prison for doing what you do day in and day out for years, for decades. Sorry, no. That's a no for me.
No, it upsets me too. Honestly, like, there's just so many things that are happening right now that I don't agree with, but
people are just upset that he thought of it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think he made $400,000 or something like that, which is great.
It's almost like the Kalshis and the poly markets are exposing some of the behaviors that are going on right now.
It's true.
I think Poly Market just opened up a bar in DC called the Situation Room. Is that?
Oh, really?
Something like that. Even if it was temporary, I'm like, that's a cool name for a bar.
That's funny.
I was pretty excited about that. So I'm trying to just kind of. All right. So we talked about Maricopa County. Is there anything else kind of regarding like the 2024 election that you think is important for people to know about?
For 2024, I think it's important for 2026 to look at 2024 because in 2024, the American people said, we are so sick of Joe Biden. We are so sick of the wokeness of the Democrats. We're sick of government, overspending and all the stuff that we're going to give Republicans the House, the Senate, the White House. We already had the Supreme Court. They gave them the majority of governors' mansions. They gave them the majority of state attorney generals. They gave them the majority of state houses and the majority of state senates. Republicans won everything. And the American people did that because they wanted to see change. And what have they got for it? Not a whole lot. And so I think Republicans need to wake up and either make some significant changes before the 2026 election, or I think a lot of them are going to get primaried. I don't think people are going to vote left because they know the left is where the left is. But I think a lot of these, I'm excited about the primaries. I want to see what's happening with the primary elections.
The only thing that concerns me right now is that there are some people coming out and saying not to vote, which that's just, guys, I mean, at least in my opinion, that's stupid advice because, like, we need to flood the polls with numbers. I think that's how we won the 2024 election.
That's how we won the 2024 election, and I think that's very important. And the reason people were willing to do that was because it was Donald Trump, right? And they thought that if Trump had the House and the Senate, he'd be able to do what he wanted to do. And little did they know that the Republican House and the Republican Senate were going to stab the president in the back repeatedly over the next year. I mean, we lost this momentum in less than a year. It's pretty wild. So, I've heard some people are more optimistic about 26, saying, oh, conservatives are going to keep everything, and especially with the gerrymandering and the redistricting. I don't know what's going to happen. I kind of don't care. And I don't mean that in like I don't care what happens to our country. I'm just saying I'm not worried if Republicans lose the House. It's going to be terrible. There's going to be impeachments. It's going to be, 2016 all over again. But I would rather lose in 26 than 28, to be honest. So if they need 2 years to remember how awful things were, okay.
And, you have a good point there. And that's where I'm also for, like, diversity of thought within a party. But there's got to be some unity of people coming together under the understanding it's okay to disagree, but agree on the big things. One of the things that I thought, and again, we don't need to get into opinions, but that I thought was funny was that I found footage of Megyn Kelly's like 4.5 minutes of her
I saw your post.
flip-flopping. And one of the things that really stuck out to me more than anything, it's like you can not like someone, but it was about transgenderism. And I'm like, dude, we all are on the same page that this is not right because it's like polluting kids' minds. So like that was crazy to me to be able to be right ideologically and then just flip-flop so extreme on that. So you guys kind of do your research on people. Like if there's like an extreme, polarization in thought, yes, I understand, having new information, making a change, but some things are a little sus. Definitely vote, don't avoid the polls and, come together when you can because we have to have some level of being together.
We do. I think the problem that we have is that I think the majority of the Republican establishment, meaning the party, meaning the people controlling the candidates, they're still establishment. And I think there's a good chunk. I don't know. I shouldn't say majority. Maybe it's the majority. Maybe it's half. I don't know. Maybe it's less than half. I don't know. But there is still a very large contingent within the Republican Party that's just trying to wait out Donald Trump. They just want to wait him out. And then they're like, and then we're going to go right back to what we were before without him because there is no Donald Trump after Donald Trump. And you love or hate J.D. Vance. He's not Donald Trump and he's not going to be Donald Trump. So I think that's what makes it hard. In my mind, what makes it hard to just agree is you have a large contingent of Republicans in power who give you lip service and say, yes, I agree. And we say, okay, we all agree. We all come together. And then they don't do it. And then we just fall flat. And so I don't know. I'm just open to ruffled feathers, I guess, at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I can say I would like to see kind of more, camaraderie across the aisle. I know that at one point, Luna and AOC were working on a credit card interest rate cap bill, which I know not everybody will agree on that, but I just like the fact that I was like, oh, okay, like we're coming together on something.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important to not just completely write off everybody.
At least they're trying.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to be in DC to do some work just kind of advocating for to strip the Farm Bill of language that promotes really animal cruelty, because if you guys don't know this, when it comes to agriculture, usually the animals are kept in pens that are big enough to roam a little bit, and they are trying to advocate so that everyone will have to be abiding by a law that would have pigs in a strict pen so that they can't even turn around.
What's the benefit of that? Why do they want
I think
to do
maybe
that?
having more animals, like more,
Right.
space that accommodates more. But the problem is the Chinese owned companies are coming in and trying to put us out of business because the Chinese don't care. They're like, let's lump them all in together, and some of the more morally, ethically sound American farmers don't want to do that. So it's cheaper through some of these Chinese companies. Okay. And so this also affects the seafood market. So I am learning all about this now. This isn't something that I will be kind of probably conversing with some Democrats because we need to get them on the side of, hey, and it's not against the whole bill. It's just that part of it. So the Save Our Bacon Act, we're trying to amend the language.
You want the Save Your Bacon Act to pass?
We don't want that. No. So it's just, little nuances there. So everybody's saying, call your congressman, say no to passing the Save Our Bacon Act. We want to protect our livestock, and, we want them to be healthy because these pigs aren't just being, confined. They're going to be injected with hormones, which we know with the MAHA movement. We don't want anything unnecessary injected in our foods, especially here in the United States. Like, this is not imported food. So we'll see what happens. I think that's getting put to vote in the next 2 weeks. So I will see what happens.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I like learning about the food industry and just the way things are working. And I just learned a couple weeks ago from a farmer here that Iran, Russia, and I believe it's Ukraine have some of the biggest sources of food fertilizer in the world. And some of our farmers here are using that, which I know fertilizer can be used for other things outside farming. Won't get into that. But the point is that we have to remember kind of where we're getting this stuff from, why the costs are going up so high, and we got to try to get, our meat prices down. People need to live. So
yeah, very good.
Yeah. So a little different than what I'm used to looking at. But I guess, is there anything like that you're kind of looking at right now that you think is super pressing, or you want to talk about Judicial Watch too?
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with Judicial Watch, please check us out at judicialwatch.org. I think for me, the big issue for 2026, what we see going forward, is the Department of Justice. Mm-hmm. I think people, they want to see prosecutions. They want to see, retribution was the big word for all of the January 6ers, those of us that were targeted in the Arctic Frost investigations. They want things set right. And I think we need to see some, I don't mean movement as in people, but just action coming out of the Department of Justice. Otherwise, we don't have justice. It's like, it's basically open season on conservatives. They can target conservatives as much as they want, and then nothing happens to them. And then, the next cycle, they come back harder. So, at this point, I don't even know that prosecutions can happen. I don't know that we even have time for that anymore. So I'm not necessarily pushing for prosecutions. I'm pushing for the department. When I say pushing, I just mean on your podcast. I'm not doing anything with it. But I would encourage the Department of Justice to take action to let the American people know that the Department of Justice is being cleaned out. If you're not going to actually prosecute people, which it doesn't look like they're going to, then fire those who did. Right? There's a lot of people still within the department who are okay with abusing their position of power. And I think that's a big issue for 2026 that needs to be addressed.
So one thing I want to touch on, because I know we're talking about prosecutions. We have an update as in the last 19 hours. So I know Mueller's gone now, but the important thing here is that Comey is being prosecuted, I believe, in the Southern District of Florida, right? There's a couple cases out of Russiagate that are... I think
there's grand juries going on down there. I wasn't aware of any indictments coming out yet. Okay. Do we have an indictment? I don't think there's been anything announced on the Russiagate prosecutions other than the fact that they're investigating it. And you might have been thinking of Joe DeGenova was just appointed as either special prosecutor or U.S. attorney or something. So Joe DeGenova is leading that Russiagate investigation, I believe.
I really hope some things happen because we've gone through hell, for lack of a better word, the last 10 years.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key issues. Obviously, people care about the economy, they care about immigration, they care about gas prices, they care about home prices, what affects our lives the most. But I think a very close second to just life as we know it is the Department of Justice. I think there needs to be something done with that.
And I'm really hopeful that the gas prices are going to come down. I know people are concerned right now that they're saying if we're exporting gas that we're, it's not going to affect our dollar at the tank. But if we are one of the main, sources of gas and oil in the world, it's like, look at Dubai. I mean, that's what made them. So, I mean, I am personally optimistic. I think that Trump's making strategic moves that are going to happen long term. And I am excited to see how that affects everything. Because just remember, if our gas prices go down, that affects our food costs too, because all the transportation. That's why there was huge trucker strikes in Canada. I actually know one of the head lawyers of that movement. His son and I are really good friends. But there is movement all over the world within the people affecting change in their governments, and just hold out a little longer, because I am trying not to be impatient. I know it's hard, but I don't know. You're right. After Trump, who's really going to be like how he is affecting change? And I mean, I actually think Rubio is getting some positive support, because I mean, after all, he's got like 1 billion memes named after him.
I'm not gonna lie. I did not like Marco Rubio. I like him more now than I did before this administration. So I'll give him that.
I think I will agree with you that I think he's won over a lot of support that was unexpected. And one of my favorite memes, I think he was like dressed as like Fidel Castro or something. Like,
yeah,
it was just
he's
like
gonna run Cuba. He's gonna, be the Shah of Iran.
He's gonna be like a baseball coach. Like he's a Renaissance man. But where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on X and Twitter at Christina_Bobb, BOBB. At ChristinaBobb.com, my
Instagram
website.
too.
Yeah, Instagram. Yeah, Instagram and X. Oh, sorry, Instagram and X. And my book's on Amazon.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining. Like I said, super excited for this one. And thank you so much for allowing me to interview you. And I hope that you have more interviews to come. I hope everybody reads Defiant and gets back into reading in general, because our reading comprehension in this country needs to come up. And that is my final thought. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you like this episode, just hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.